Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. I'd like to begin today's program with a quote. Forests are the lungs of the earth. They clean the air and give off life-giving oxygen. They inhale carbon and store it in their leaves, limbs, trunks, roots, and soils. That is a byword or set of bywords of the organization called Heartwood. And with me today are two representatives of Heartwood, Ernie Reed and Becky Woodaman. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
Let's begin by explaining to our viewers exactly what Heartwood is. Either one of you can jump in.
Heartwood is a coalition, a network of members, individuals, and member groups that cover approximately 13 states, the central hardwoods area, land that has national forests in it on the east of the Mississippi River. So we have Heartwood member groups throughout Arkansas, Mississippi, North Carolina, up to Michigan and Pennsylvania, covering all those states. Primarily, we work on national forests, forest protection in those areas, and also environmental issues in the communities surrounding those.
Yeah, we're a regional network of nonprofit organizations, but one thing that's important to emphasize is that we are also comprised of individual members. So you don't necessarily have to be a part of an organization in your area to be involved with Heartwood.
Now you all have a big program coming up on Memorial Day weekend here in this area, and you're allied or affiliated with Concept Zero here on campus. Tell us about the big doings on Memorial Day weekend.
Well, Memorial Day weekend we're going to be at Camp Kumbaya. Yes, it's true, Camp Kumbaya.
Yes.
At Land Between the Lakes in western Kentucky. And our member groups, Concept Zero, the Regional Association of Concerned Environmentalists from the Carbondale area, Friends of Bell Smith Springs and the Shawnee National Forest, SAFE, and other groups, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth and Kentucky Heartwood, are all contributing to that weekend. It's a weekend where there's activists from all over the Heartwood region that come. We do it in a different place in the Heartwood region every year for strategic regions to help support our member groups, and to inspire and to educate and to give people the tools that they need to protect the places they love.
Now you had said earlier that you all were a lot more fun than most environmentalists. Can you explain that?
One thing that Ernie didn't mention is that we have a great lineup of music this year. We got some really good bands that will be playing. We have the talent show, which is always hilarious and fun.
Well, now what about the talent show? I mean, what kind of talent are we talking here?
I think one thing that's really important to emphasize, and this is a good way to make that point, is that the Heartwood Network becomes a very close-knit family of sorts, and it's kind of fun to have, you know, people that you haven't gotten quite to know yet or that you've known for a long time get to kind of let loose a little bit at times. And I think the talent show is a good way to show either talents
I do
not.
Too. And I think that even though it's a serious issue, that doesn't preclude fun.
There's never, I mean, I guess we realize that, that one of the things that the environmental movement really doesn't get a chance to display enough is the humor and the joy and just the pleasure of the work that it is for us. It's just really, it's a pleasure and an opportunity and a privilege to be able to do this kind of work, and it inspires us when we get together with our friends who are doing the same things in other places. That inspires us. And then we get to play music, we get to sing songs, we get to read poetry, we get to do funny animal noises. And in fact, you don't have to be a musician to be able to play a musical instrument at the talent show.
Yeah.
However, we have some of the finest singers and songwriters as part of our network and musicians that you can imagine. And so,
well, on the topic of musicians, we have a distinguished banjo player here on this campus named David Nickel.
I've never
Yes.
heard those two
Oh,
words
he
used
is
in the same phrase before.
Distinguished.
He really is tremendous.
Yeah.
He is, yes.
You need to get him in the talent show.
We've been trying.
I hope you do. So, well, your critics, and this is true of environmentalists in general, call you all tree huggers and job killers. How do you respond to that?
Well, first of all, I'm not only a tree hugger, I'm a tree hugger. So that's what my bumper sticker says, so you have to understand that.
Explain that. Tree hugger.
Hugger of tree huggers.
Okay. I'm glad you cleared that up.
Right. We love the forests. These are the places we love. It's the work that we do because we love these areas, we love our communities, and we love to see their heritage and their natural processes go on for our children and our children's children. So that's just really pure and simple. And you know, there's a question about having a balance between protecting nature and letting, you know, our capitalist society take its course. The national forests are really the last repository of biological diversity and places where forests and recreation and seclusion and primitive experiences even exist. And in the East, they're a lot rarer than they are in the West. So these are things very valuable, and we know that the national forests here, you know, and the Forest Service and the Department of Agriculture have a mission to provide and promote and produce forest products, and that's part of their mission. In the East, conservation, clean air, clean water, and you know, providing those ecosystem services and recreation and such. Those are the things that support the communities here, and those things are so very important to us, and so we think those should be the top priorities for these national forests.
And to answer your question as well, the things that Ernie just listed not only support the communities in, you know, as far as getting to experience that, but they also do provide jobs. I feel like that's something that doesn't get looked at enough, is that there is economic wealth that can come from recreation. The sporting goods stores can benefit from providing, you know, if we can preserve these areas that are beautiful, people will want to come and experience them.
One really good example, one of our member organizations, Kentucky Heartwood, just recently protected an area called Little Egypt. There was a large timber sale that was proposed in this area that very few people knew anything about, and once some of the folks in Kentucky Heartwood went and took a look at what was going on there, they realized that there were, you know, 150, 200-year-old trees there. There was it was this beautiful watershed and some fabulous springs that were back there, and none of that information was part of the project.
Where is Little Egypt, Kentucky?
I wish I could tell you. It's the Daniel Boone National Forest.
Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah, south of Morehead.
Southern Illinois is called Little Egypt.
Right.
As well.
Yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm getting at, let me give you a hypothetical here, if I may. Here's a guy who comes in, and he's a logger, and he has a crew of 10 guys. And he says that what you're doing is you're taking money out of the pocket of him and his 10 guys. How do you respond to that?
First of all, virtually everything that goes on in the National Forest, whether it's a prescribed burn, a timber sale, vegetation management, any of those things, that's all comes from taxpayer money. You know, so we pay for those. So if they're going to be spending taxpayer money on things, they should definitely be things that are going to benefit the entire community. The other thing is that the communities that surround these national forests in the East really do a better job providing these products than the national forests do. The national forests were the lands that nobody wanted. You know, they are there because they were stripped to the bone. The government bought them for $1 an acre, and they continue to be, really, in terms of timber production, certainly, not as heavily productive as some of the private lands and communities around them. Now, when it comes to things like oil and gas leasing and coal and things like that, where are those storehouses going to exist when the fracking companies come and take take all those resources from the local communities. It's not going to exist anywhere. National forests are for everybody. They aren't just for the businesses. They're for everybody. And the things that they can provide for everybody in equal distribution are those, is air, water, recreation, solitude, and the joy of just knowing that they're there.
I've seen the term called green tourism. And if you think of the Smoky Mountains, my dad's from East Tennessee, and I remember going there years ago and seeing a display on what this area looked like before the national park. And they had clear cut these mountains. I mean, they were just denuded of trees. And the Smoky Mountains, I believe, is the most visited of the eastern national parks. You've got this huge tourism industry around it that sustains it. Of course, the other issue in Kentucky, the big issue, is mountaintop removal. Several years ago, I had Dave Cooper on the program, and I mean, these photographs are incredible. And I don't think people who live outside these mountain areas realize what exactly this is. But it looks like a wasteland because it's been bombed out.
The tops of the mountains are literally blown up with explosives.
And what he said, we're talking about on the issue of jobs, he said that actually there are many more jobs created by underground mining than there are this surface mining. But there was a politician in Kentucky, I won't mention his name to protect the guilty, who was talking about how great mountaintop removal was because it made these flat areas that you could build things on. So you live in the mountains and you just blow the top of the mountain, build them all there or whatever.
I didn't finish telling you about Little Egypt because what happened is when the county realized what an amazing place that was, the project was reversed, and now what they're going to be doing is building a footpath through Little Egypt that connects both ends of the county to help encourage their tourism and recreation in that area. That and everybody will have a chance to experience how beautiful this is. That's going to feed the community over the long term.
Right.
And I have something I can say too about your question about the logging or the logging companies. The National Forest comprises such a small percentage of the forests within the eastern United States and the region in which we're in. And if you really look at it, there's plenty of work on other places on private land. And if we can just preserve the national forests, like that's kind of what we're advocating for. I think it's important to note that Heartwood's not, we don't take a stance that was completely against sustainable logging, at least, and I think that's important to note that we're at least looking at that. But if we can just preserve the national forests, which are our forests, your forests, everybody is
I think a big part of what you all do is raise awareness because in your previous program I was privileged to hear, you talked about logging in national forests. I really didn't know that went on. Now I thought what they would do is, let's say I'm going to run a road through here, I will cut down trees and make a right-of-way, maybe cut the trees back from the road so the deer won't out and hit your car. I had no idea that there was the extent of commercial logging going on in these national forests, and I wonder how many Americans are aware of that. Do you all, as you make your presentations, discover that people are not terribly aware of how much logging goes on in these national forests?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, people like you say are shocked to find out that they aren't just forests. They're also, the trees are being cut, areas are being cleared, clear cutting still goes on. But what's really terrible now, or what we're really up against, is that these forests are no longer really just being looked at as sources of saw timber. They're being looked at as energy resources. So what's happening now is that the oil and the gas is much more valuable. So therefore, oil and gas leases are much more prevalent than they've ever been before. There's more mining going on that there has been, except way back in the turn of the century when there was a lot of mining going on. And the trees that are being taken off the forest are now, many of them are being targeted for biomass incinerators, whole tree burning of trees to make steam, to turn turbines, to create electricity. And while some people might argue, I think wrongly, that this is a renewable resource, clearly forests are not renewable, because forests consist of a lot more than just the standing trees that are easy to cut down and ship someplace.
And how long does it take to replace a big tree? 75, 100 years? Yeah.
A forester will tell you that a big tree will take about that time, but try to restore a forest. The original old growth forests that were here in the 1600s, those forests just aren't seen. I know of one 17-acre old growth forest in West Virginia that you go there and the soil and the moss is so deep you want to do nothing more than take off your shoes and walk around in it.
Right.
And you think you're in another world, and you think maybe you're on the West Coast, but those forests don't exist here. And some of the forests that were logged at the time that the national forests were formed, those are now starting to reestablish themselves and have some really old growth characteristics. That is great for the water, it's great for the air, and it's great for the climate.
That's another point. How does the cutting down of trees affect global warming? Which some people deny, but it's pretty hard to deny that given the evidence. And again, when you're 63 years old like I am, I remember back, and David Nichol does too, when we used to have big snows in the winter. I mean, here in Kentucky, and we just don't have that kind of snow anymore. So how do trees, and I love this quote of being the lungs of the earth, that's a really good analysis. How do trees, how do the cutting down of trees contribute to global warming?
Well, first of all, the forests create their own microclimates. The moisture, the temperature, the humidity, and the structure when more radical wind patterns and weather patterns come through, those are all, a forest maintains all of those because you have structural stability in the forest. You have trees of all different sizes and shapes, so you don't have as much blowdown. The waters are cooled from the canopy being closed, and so you have native fish in those streams that can live longer because and propagate because the water is colder and not heated. You have the humidity, the soil is retained, and so you retain the moisture in the soil. In the Smoky Mountains, up to 3/4 of the water that actually goes into that forest comes from cloud drip, which means the clouds come over, it forms drip on the canopy, and then falls to the forest. Without the forest canopy, that of course can't happen. Now that's kind of at a small scale. At a large scale, if trees are being cut down, you're losing the carbon sinks that those are. The forests are the largest storehouses of terrestrial carbon that there exists. We have the fossil carbon, of course, the coal and the oil and the natural gas. But we feel that the forests are important not just because the forests themselves hold the carbon and because the Forest Service needs to take responsibility for the environmental effects of that kind of extraction, oil and gas as well. But also, if those are being extracted primarily to be incinerated, then that's immediately going into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide, more greenhouse gases, worsening climate. So it's all connected. You can't save just one piece of this puzzle. You really have to look at it all, and you can really look at it all in these national forests.
So let me get this straight. So they're actually going to cut down trees just to burn them as fuel?
And they burn forests to restore them. To restore them, the buzzword. Because foresters and the Forest Service likes to have a large amount of oaks in the forest, and their argument is that one that is arguably not quite substantiated, that burning the forests on a regular basis will increase the numbers of oaks in the forest. And so therefore the Forest Service has prescribed burns. Many national forests are being burned, anywhere from I would say 1/10 of the forest to 1/3 of the forest on a rotating basis, just purely because there's money in the budget to do those burns and because it gives the Forest Service the kind of forest that they would like to see.
Now, one thing that I always think of when we start talking about prescribed burns is, as when I was growing up, I just remember the slogan that Smokey the Bear would say, "Only you can prevent forest fires," and it's just very ironic to learn as I learn more about forest protection that the Forest Service is actually doing the exact opposite, and that's something I feel others, you know, when I start talking to people about what I do and the job that I work for, you know, they don't believe first that there's logging on our national forests, and then the second thing they don't believe is that we're actually, the Forest Service is going in and burning as well. So
that was new to me.
Yep.
And we visited several national parks and enjoy the national parks. I had no idea. So again, a big part of your operation is public awareness of this. And you all travel the country doing this?
Within our region of the Heartwood network.
What we're doing right now, which is really so gratifying, is that because we have member groups and individuals all over the area, Heartwood really believes in people. I mean, that's the most important resource that we really have. So we go and we see everyone face to face, we reconnect with them, we see what issues they have, we find out how we can help them, because oftentimes it's the experiences that are going on in Pennsylvania or Ohio that contribute most to helping the people in Illinois or Indiana. And those are the kind of things that we do when we go out and reestablish and rebuild our network, which is actually growing. So it's a great thing.
I think it's also important to note that Ernie and I are on tour right now with our new campaign that was just launched, the Forests, Carbon, and Climate campaign. And that's where kind of what the themes of what we're all talking about right now. But that's another way that individuals and organizations can get more involved in the subject matter that we're speaking of.
Well, as you go through and you're spreading the word, and somebody says, "Wow, I didn't know they were logging in our national forests. I didn't know they were burning trees. I don't like that. What can I do about it?"
Well, first of all, Heartwood has really been at the forefront at making sure that the environmental laws that we have that give us the ability to participate in the management of the forests is something that we can continue to do. We've actually gone to the Supreme Court to defend those rights. And what happens is that every national forest has a series of projects, and any person who is concerned can contact the national forest and say, "Please let me know what you're doing and where and when," and find out and then comment on projects. They can file complaints against the projects if they wish, and if they feel that something is being done wrong, or if they feel that their lives are being impacted negatively because of them, they can actually go to court over it. So people have the right and the responsibility to make sure that the forests are being managed the way they'd like.
And one thing that's really, you know, I would say the fundamental or the core level that you can do is contact us, and what we can do is put you on an action alert list, and that's kind of an easy way to get involved and an easier way to kind of learn the issues, because I was a little intimidated when I first started learning about the projects that were happening within the national forest that I'm near. And so one thing that we do is we send out an email to you to let you know about something that's happening in your area, and it has, you know, we can send you to our website, and it will show you, you know, a form letter that was something that somebody had comprised about the certain issue, and you can become more familiar that way. Then you can write your own letter. And so as you participate more in the process, you can definitely go up the stages that Ernie just pointed out, and eventually, you know, that's how people started out, and they became a lot more passionate and became a lot more involved.
We provide support at every level of the process that I just mentioned, all from the beginning to the end. And oftentimes people get in contact with Becky and say, "This forest that I've always used to love is now on the chopping block," or they're going to put a fracking well 50 feet from my house. What are the things that I can do? And we have, you know, besides plugging people into our network, oftentimes people will start their own, you know, kind of volunteer organizations to deal with the threats in their community. One of the other things that Heartwood does, we provide mini grants, so we actually provide financial support that's a really quick turnaround for someone that wants to have a public meeting, wants to do flyers, wants to bring media attention to it, or want to go through the process to try to stop it legally, and we can provide some of the support, not just strategic, but also financial, to help them do that.
You mentioned fracking. We've just got a few minutes left. Explain what that's all about. Obviously, they're trying to get more oil and gas out of the ground, but what do you all see as the drawbacks to that?
I think the thing that I always found interesting with this is that there's a difference between surface rights and mineral rights, and maybe you can speak to that, because that was
yeah, you had mentioned that earlier, and we own a house and have a little plot of ground. I mean, I didn't know anything about surface rights and mineral rights.
Many people in many states, when they purchase their land, someone earlier in the chain of title has bought the mineral rights to that land, and so you may have 50 acres on your nice vacation home, and I know someone in West Virginia that falls under this category, who buys the land and was totally unaware that the mineral rights were owned by somebody else. If someone owns mineral rights, they trump, according to law, they trump surface rights, which means that if someone wants to exercise those mineral rights, they can use any reasonable means to do so. In the case of fracking, as is what's happening in a place called Dodge Ridge County, which is right in the middle of the Marcellus Shale Belt in West Virginia, in this example, a mountain was, the top of the mountain was taken off and the fill was put down next to the river because you can't put an oil or gas well in a floodplain, built up the floodplain 12 feet, and then a 7-acre landing pad, basically, where you can drill up to 7 wellheads. Those are fracked with a hydraulic drill that is about 7 stories high and lit up so that an airplane won't crash into it, and it goes 24/7.
24/7, so
Yeah.
that is a loud endeavor.
Yeah. Until that drill has gone down 2 miles into the Marcellus Shale and then horizontally beyond that. And they pump in fracking fluids, which include all sorts of proprietary information that the companies are shielded from having to talk about.
Over 900 something plus chemicals that they don't have to tell you that
Yeah.
they're pumping into your water.
The oil and gas industry is shielded from 9 different environmental laws that were put into place to protect air quality, water quality, and the health of the people that live there. And as a result of that happened under the Bush administration, oil and gas leasing at the federal level is virtually non-regulated.
Yeah.
So once the well has been fracked, then the well becomes productive, and what you have is another 24/7 procession of semi-trucks coming in, removing fracking fluid and removing the oil and gas on roads that were probably built to handle country traffic. And instead you have this constant passage of these large trucks, and you know, the dust, the air quality, the water quality, and what fracking does in terms of getting into watersheds is awful.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Before we go, very quickly, contact telephone number,
Sure.
email address, website. You got 10 seconds.
Okay, Heartwood, www.heartwood.org. That's the best way to get all that information. You can also contact us by email at info@heartwood.org, and that will go directly to my inbox.
You can friend us on Facebook.
And find us on Facebook.
Because Facebook is a great way to find out what people in the Heartwood region are doing, the good stories, the bad stories, and how they're fighting the issues that compromise their lives.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Barry Craig. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.